Hello everybody, my name is James Jung and I'll be your teacher for US History and English. Now, just before we begin, let me just introduce myself a bit, okay? Now, as I said, my name is James and I'm going to teach US history, right? Now, when I was at university, I did study a little bit about history, so hopefully with my knowledge, I can help you with your readings and your lessons throughout the year, okay? Now, we have a total of 36 lessons, okay? Now, in each of your lessons, we have a reading, okay? Now, each reading is related to US history and English, okay? So, as I said, US is what? US, it means United States, right? Okay, so we're going to focus on the history of the United States of America, okay? So, let's begin with lesson 1 today, okay? Now, just looking at lesson 1, okay, US history and English, that's us, right? Now, lesson 1, the reading for today, if you look in your books, and by the way, this is the book we're going to study from, okay? US history and English. It says Oak Meadow Learning Guide, right? Now, this is the book, right? Now, if you turn to lesson 1, page 1, you'll have lesson 1, social studies and English, okay? Now, our reading for today is looking at early visitors to North America, okay? Now, US history, right? So America, North America. Do you know where North America is? Well, I think you might know, but just to make sure, let's just go to this map here. We have a world map, and let's just find America, or United States of America, right? We're looking at US, United States, which is right here, okay? We have Mexico, which is underneath it, below, and we have Canada, which is above it, okay? So United States, and this is the place we're going to study about, okay? US, United States. Okay, now just before I begin our reading for today, let me just go through some of the vocabulary and our grammar point for today. Now, first of all, today, if you look in your book, page 1, you'll have a list of vocabulary words, okay? Now, what you should do is that every time you choose these vocabulary words, right, try to have them in an alphabetical order, okay? So, from A to Z. So, number 1 for today, we have the word artifact, right? Now, artifact simply means a man-made object, okay? You can say for practical jobs, such as tools, right? Those are artifacts, okay? And number 2, we have the word exotic, okay? Exotic simply means strange or unusual, right? Now, it can also mean something foreign, which to us looks very different or strange, or in a way, weird as well. And number 3, we have hazard. Now, hazard simply means danger or risk, okay? And number 4, we have magnet, okay? Oh, sorry, magnetic, okay? Now, magnetic simply means ability to attract. And we're talking about attraction of iron, okay? You guys know what an iron is, right? Well, it's simply an attraction of iron. Okay, next we have number 5, migrate. Now, what does migrate mean? Simply means move from one country to another and settle there, okay? Means migrate. And number 6, we have a sphere, okay? Now, a sphere is simply, we can talk about a globe, right? Now, do you guys know a soccer ball? It's round, right? And do you know a map, which is a globe, which is a round map? Well, that's what we're talking about, okay? Sphere, a globe, okay? It's like the shape of a soccer ball or a basketball, right? And number 7, we have technology. Now, technology simply means science, really, okay? We talk about computers and we talk about mobile phones, right? No, those are all technologies that we have today, okay? Or we can say applying scientific knowledge to practical problems simply means technology, okay? Now, these words or vocabularies will be mentioned in your reading. Now, if these do appear, I'll refer back to these words, okay? Now, let's go on to a grammar point for today. Grammar, okay, as I said, we're studying US history and English, right? English. So as part of our English lesson, I'm going to cover each lesson. I'm going to show you and teach you some grammar points. Now, today's grammar point is very easy. I think you might know this already, okay? Now, first of all, we have what is called a subject, okay? Now, subject simply means what the sentence is about, okay? What is the sentence about? So simply we're looking at usually nouns. okay? Meaning subject, okay? And number 2, we have what is called a predicate, okay? Predicate tells us about the subject. So it is about the subject, okay? Tells us about the subject. Now, for an example, right, I have a very short sentence. Now, can we all get this? The cat ran outside. Now, first of all, the subject. What is the subject here? What is the sentence about? It's the cat, right? We're talking about the cat. Now, what about the predicate? Predicate about the subject. What do we know about the subject? What is our subject? The cat, cat, right? Now, what do we know about the cat? Well, the cat, I'll use a different color. The cat ran outside. So ran outside is our predicate, and the cat is our subject. Very simple, right? Yeah, I think you might know this already. Now, if you look at the back of your reader, okay? Now, as I said, this book, right? Now, if you turn to the very back, you have what it's called an English manual, okay? Now, let me just get the front page. Okay, here we go. English manual, okay? Now, for every grammar point that you see, okay, in each of your lessons, now please refer to your English manual. And for today's grammar point, if you want to look at the subject and a predicate, please turn to sentences and sentence construction in your English manual, okay? And there are a few exercises for you to do. So if you do see them, please go over and practice it in your own time, okay? Now, let's begin with today's reading. Now, today's reading is looking at early visitors to North America. Early visitors, you say, right? Who are they? Means people long time ago who came and visited America. Now, first of all, okay, we're talking about America, right? Today, America is home to many people. For example, we have many Europeans, the Caucasians, right, the whites, and we also have many African Americans, meaning blacks, right? And we also have people from other countries as well, such as Asia, India, and so on, and even the Middle East people, right? Now, going back to the history of America, right? Now, the first people we talk about, the ancient people, right, came from Asia, okay? So the original people, the people who first lived in America, came from Asia, okay? And they walked along what is called a Bering Strait. Now, a Bering Strait, it's a bridge, right? And it's covered by water now, okay? Now, just going back to our map now, do you guys know where a Bering Strait is? Now, if you just look here, okay, it's quite small, right? I hope you have good eyesight. Now, this is the Bering Strait, okay? Now, this was like a bridge, okay? And this is where people from Asia, right? So maybe China and here, they traveled across the Bering Strait to where? To the United States, okay? So there used to be a long bridge, okay? But it's now underwater, okay? And this was about thousands of years ago, okay? And these Asians we talk about today, we call them what? American Indians, right? Okay, I'll get to the American Indians or Native American people very soon. Now, in America, right, long time ago in history, right, we had wild horses which lived in North America. Now, these horses disappeared, right, so we don't have these horses. Now, one interesting thing about these horses were that they were less than a foot tall. So that's about 30 centimeters. So they're very small horses, okay, probably about this size, okay. Now, they disappeared, but we don't know why they disappeared, okay? And we can say that these were probably the first mammals which lived in America, okay? Now, as I said, we talked about the first people who arrived in America, right? Who were what? Indians, right? Now, Indians, just talking about these Indians, there are 3 main types of Indians, okay? Now, first of all, there were the Great Plain Indians, okay? And who depended on buffalo. You know what a buffalo is, right? It's like a big bull with long hair and with these big horns, right? Tusks or horns. And they built homes around around the buffaloes, right? So you see herds of buffaloes go, and they were very close, and they hunted these buffaloes and relied on them for food and for clothing and to build homes as well. Now our second type of Indians we have are called Northwestern Indians, okay, who lived in wood and bark homes. Now, what is a bark? Now, bark is simply the outer skin of a tree, right? The hard surface of the skin, the outer surface. So they built homes from wood and bark. And we also have what is called an Arctic Indians, okay? Now, they depended very heavily on water and the ocean, right? Because they live in a very cold place, okay? And they depended heavily on ice, seals, whales, and so on, and many of the other fish, which was in the ocean. So they were the three types of Indians. Now you can find this in your reading, okay? So please look through your book as you listen to my lesson. Now let's go on. So after the Indians, right? Now these Indians, when they first arrived in America, they lived there for a long, long time, okay? Now, but about 1,000 years ago, the first Europeans. Now, who are the Europeans? Europeans are people who come from Europe, right? Now, let's just go back to a map. Now, Europe is where? Now, this is Europe here, right? We have, for example, Germany, England, Poland, Swiss, and so on. So from here, they were the first people to come to the United States, the first Europeans. Now, these Europeans were what? Vikings, right? You know what? Who Vikings are? They're like people. They're like a gang in a way, right? But they're Vikings who traveled on big ships, and they're very good fighters as well. Now they came from Europe, as I said, right? But in particular, they came from Norway, Iceland, and Greenland. Now let's look at Norway. Do you guys know where Norway is? Norway is right here, okay? How about Iceland, which is right here, Iceland? And how about Greenland? Greenland here as well, okay? So they came from these three different places, and they were the Vikings who first came to America, the first Europeans anyway. Now, they settled in a place called Newfoundland, right? But later they left, okay? So they might probably they actually stayed for around 500 years, but they later left America and went back home. But until this very day, we don't know why they left, okay? So after these Vikings left, right, we had more Europeans coming into the countries, okay? Now, we call this European Age of Exploration, okay? This is in your book, okay? Now, these Europeans were traveling around to find information or find things about other places in the world, right? Because long time ago, they didn't know much about other cities or other countries, okay? Because there weren't airplanes which we have today, so they couldn't fly, right? They had ships, but they didn't know their directions. So they wanted to know and find out about these different countries. So they became very interested in exploring. Exploring meaning traveling, okay? Now, during this time, right, we had what was called crusades, okay? Now, crusades simply means religious wars, okay? And this happened in about 1001 and 1300. So this was around this time of the period, okay? 1001 and 1003, okay, 1300 and 1100, these years. And this is when the religious wars, or we talk about crusades, happened, okay? Now, so, Europeans traveled around Middle East and Asia and fought each other, okay, during the crusade. Now, as I said, Europeans, as they traveled, they became very interested in other culture, okay? And they were very interested in exotic artifacts, okay? Now remember artifacts, it's going back to our vocabulary. Oh, it's right here. Number one, artifact. I talked about a man-made object, right? Now those were artifacts, and they became very interested. Why? Because it's different, right? And it was very sure that, there was money to be made from trading or buying these artifacts, okay? And as a result, this is when the age of exploration began. Okay, if you look in your book, age of exploration is probably a key concept in our reading. Okay. Now, before the age of exploration, though, most Europeans didn't know much about the Earth or the world. Okay. Now, they believed that, for example, in the ocean and the sea, right? They believed that monsters lived in the sea, okay, which is quite crazy, right? And they thought that the world was flat, okay? Now, can I just get rid of this grammar? I hope you all got this. So, you know how our world is now, Earth is round, right? Well, they probably thought the Earth was what? A square shape, maybe. They thought it was flat. So they believed that if it was a ship like this, okay, sorry about my ugly drawing, but if you travel far enough, they thought that you will drop off, okay? So this was their belief. So they were actually scared, afraid to travel too far because they thought that if they travel too much, the ship will fall off at the edge, okay? But later, as they traveled and explored other countries, their beliefs changed, okay? So later they later knew that Earth was round and there were no monsters in the ocean. Now, another reason is that they wanted to travel or explore other countries, right? These Europeans, right? They wanted to travel to spread their religion, okay? Now, these Europeans were Christians, right? Are you guys Christians? Well, I'm a Christian, right? Now, they became very interested and they believed it was their job or their duty to spread their religion to other cultures. So Europeans were going around different places and trying to find people and to convert their religion, okay? Now, we talked about the sailing, right? Okay? Now, sailing or traveling by ships was very dangerous. Or we can say here we go, number 3, hazard. It was very dangerous and risky. Now, the ships then, okay, weren't as sophisticated or weren't as very safe as the ships we have today. So, many people actually died traveling on these ships, okay? Now, why was it dangerous? Well, first of all, there were very strong currents and there were many rocks and other hazards as well, okay? But there were no monsters, okay? And these ships didn't have like a motor. Instead, they had a big sail, okay? So they sailed by wind power. So when they had no wind, well, they couldn't really travel very far, right? Or not fast anyway. And as I said, they had no fancy technology. We talk about technology, right? Technology. So they didn't have, for example, computers or navigators to help them or direct them to the places they were going. So as a result, okay, they didn't know where they were going because they had no navigators, as in computers, right? So how did they find their way? Well, you know the main directions, right? We have the north, south, east, and west. Okay, here we go. We had the north, south, east, and west. Now, these Europeans who were traveling had to know the directions to travel. Now, how did they do this? Well, first of all, they relied very heavily on the stars and the sun for traveling, okay? So, for example, the North Star during the nighttime was their fixed point. So if the North Star was here, they knew that was north. That was the direction for north, right? And if they find north, they know where west, east, and south is, right? So this is how they travel. They used stars and sun to guide or direct them to where they were going, okay? Okay, now just to conclude and sum up our lesson for today, now, long time ago, as I said, looking at US history, when people were traveling by ship, they had no fancy technology, right? And at the same time, they had no maps or globes. So we talked about a sphere, right? A round globe, like a ball, like a map. They didn't have that. So it didn't tell them, or they didn't know how Earth looked like, okay? Now for this globe, right, I'll just explain one thing about the sphere or a globe, right, like this, right? Okay, get this out the way. Now, we call this a sphere. Now, or a globe, right? Now, if you cut the globe in half, okay, we can call this a hemisphere, okay? So as a reason, today we have the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, or the western and eastern hemisphere as well, okay? Now, I think I've talked enough for today. Now, that was quite a lot for the first lesson. I hope you understood. Now, if you didn't, now please look through your reading once again, and please look at these vocabulary words, okay? Now, this will come up in your reading often, okay? Now, for further explanation, now an encyclopedia is a good friend, okay? Please look in an encyclopedia if you want to know more about US history. Now, just for today, just type in early visitors to North America on the internet as well, and you'll find some information about the history of US, okay? Now, I hope you understood. Well, thank you very much for listening. And I'll see you guys back in lesson 2. Thank you very much for listening.